Spinning. Hey, everybody. Super excited to have my Alaska friends with us today. And I have so many questions about Alaska and how to buy houses in Alaska and why. Not teasing. I'm teasing. But I am really excited to learn about the process. So thank you guys for being here with me.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite, Jennifer.
Oh, I'm so glad you did it. And if anybody out there has any questions, please let us know. But I'd love to get started talking about the buying process. And I have had the pleasure of interviewing just about every state and know kind of the buying process, but I don't really know anything about Alaska. So if somebody comes in and they find the perfect house, where does it go from there? How long does it take to get to closing? Hunter, talk to me.
About 45 days. It's been less recently, but generally a comfortable time frame would be about 45 days, I would say, from start to finish.
Yeah. And what does that inspection process look like, Julie?
Well, when we work with buyers, we usually bring the general home inspector, full house home inspector, and then we also bring the HVAC inspector so that he is looking at the furnace. We have garage unit heaters here, and then the water heater. So then we have a full idea of what the repairs are going to look like. And so in our purchase and sale, we usually do a 2-week window for inspections because we don't know at that moment what our inspectors' schedules look like. And so it just allows us some buffer. So
that's awesome.
We usually schedule them quicker than that, and then we can just get the ball rolling once we get an accepted offer.
No, that's awesome. And so you rolled into my next question, which were like, what is unique about Alaska inspections? But you just told me, I mean, who knew that you had, it makes sense that you would have heaters in the garage. Yeah. But I had never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no air conditioning either. No, typically, it's very rare to have an air conditioning unit in a home up here, but some do have it. But generally, they're either portable air conditioning units or not. But inspections are a couple unique things about inspections here is we have natural gas for heating. I don't know if you do down there or not.
No, it's rare. We have some houses, but it's rare.
Yeah, I think my parents are in Virginia. They have like a propane system.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's more common.
So here we have natural gas, which is nice. And we have two typical types of three really of heating systems. One is a radiant in-floor heat, where you have a PEX tubing that's going through the floorboards, really. And it's being heated by the boiler. So the hot water is flowing through these lines, and that heats the floor, which radiates the house. Wow. And then you have a boiler system, with baseboard heaters with copper piping that radiates heat out of those. And then we have a furnace, which is forced air or central air system.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting. So your hot water heater, so we look at it and say, yeah, it looks good or it doesn't look good, but that's one of your inspections. Is that an inspection because is that the water that's running underneath the floor? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Well, what's interesting in Alaska, our water heaters require earthquake straps. So that's something that you may not have heard of before. No. So depending on the height of the water heater, they have to have a strap on the top 1/3 and the lower 1/3 of the unit. And then they have to be attached to the wall. And so there's very specific guidelines on how those have to be installed.
Wow. So you guys have earthquakes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That must be pretty good.
We had a very little one that late last night. Did you feel it, Hunter? It was very little. I happened to be awake and I'm like, earthquake.
I like them. I mean, I think they're fun, but the one in 2018 was not fun.
No,
that one was scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what makes them fun, Hunter?
Oh, I just think it's exciting to live in a place like Alaska where we're in the Ring of Fire and we have, all this geotechnical, activity, geothermal activity. We've got earthquakes, we've got volcanoes. Wow. So it's kind of an exciting place to live if you're in that field, which is why a lot of geologists and people that work in the oil industry want to work up here because it's such a unique place to work in their
Can you get
field.
me a napkin, Allie? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I've never experienced an earthquake, and with you saying it's fun, that is kind of how I feel about hurricanes. Although some people would like shoot me for saying that,
Yeah.
but it is
Oh,
kind of
mercy.
fun. I mean, it's a huge
Same thing. It's like, ooh, hurricane season. When's coming? Hurricane parties. Yeah.
Yeah, but the one that hit us in 2018 was not fun either. So I understand that as well.
Yeah, so much devastation,
Yeah.
when our earthquakes happen, depending on where the epicenter is, obviously will determine the damage. And like in 2018, we didn't lose any lives, which is fantastic.
Goodness, yeah.
But we had roads that sank. A few streets in Anchorage had some zero lot lines that sunk. Eagle River actually got quite a bit of devastation, which was curious because they're on this all bedrock. I was really surprised by that.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Mhm.
But then do you have like seasonality affecting your buying season? Like with
Yeah.
the darkness and all that, how does that affect real estate?
Oh man. I think it just affects both the buyer and seller psychology, really. I mean, buyers are more active, families that are aiming to move before the new school year, warmer weather just improves everybody's mood up here, especially getting through 6 months of winter. So you have kind of a heightened emotional engagement with a property during spring and summertime. So it's definitely more active during that period of time. And then in the winter, it's harder to tell what you're getting for a house. It's harder to move.
I was going to ask that. How could you even see a house when it's dark?
Yeah.
Like
The roof is covered, hard to see the top surface of the roof. So they really have to take a good look at the underside of the roof and the sheeting on the inside of the house. But yeah, it's not ideal time to be purchasing. So, but the people that are buying are serious buyers, and the people that are selling need to sell. So the psychology of a buyer and wanting to buy, I think I try to work that topic through with both my sellers when they're listing. When are you listing? Are you listing in October, November? You got to understand the market. When things were selling in May and June, the potential for getting that same return may not be there because the season's sort of winding down for when, all the gusto of the market and all that energy is sort of dies off towards the end of the year. So it does play a role on both sides of the coin.
Does the seasonality, does it affect your school district as far as when it starts and ends? Like here, we're very touristy, so it definitely affects our schools. And the heat affects our schools. So we get out, I think, a little bit earlier and start a little bit later than most schools. Does that have any effect on you guys?
Our school gets out pretty early. We get out on 9 days from now. So on the 21st, school ends. So I think that's typically a little early.
Yeah.
Well, they switched it after my kids were done with school. So they switched it because they used to go to school after Labor Day and then get out in June. And then they switched it, which I think makes so much sense because our weather is better in May.
Yeah.
And so the kids can really enjoy a better summer being out of school.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what about, okay, to be clear, my next question came from chat. So I don't know how good it is. But what about like permafrost and septic systems? Do those have an effect? What happens there? And part of it is my ignorance too, so I'm sorry. Anything
you're good.
is new to me.
Well, there are lots of properties in Anchorage and the surrounding areas that do have septic systems. I'm actually on a septic system. Where we live in Anchorage is, I'm assuming there might be, and I really don't know the most technical response to this question, but I'm sure there is permafrost deeper where we are, but as you go north, it's more shallow. But we do have well and septic inspections, and those are typically a seller cost if they want to convey a property. And that the results of that septic test are good for 2 years. The water sample is only good for 90 days. That's correct, right? 190 days. That's what I remembered. Okay. And anyway, and so a lot of times, depending on what time of year we're closing, will depend on if they can get work done. And our municipality changed a few years ago their requirements on tanks and the age of tanks. And so we're seeing a lot of sellers having to replace older than 20-year septic tanks. So it's usually quite an extensive repair, ripping up the yard, things like that.
Wow.
Mhm.
And then what's your average, like, and Hunter, will go to you. What's your average price point in Alaska and Anchorage?
I believe we're just over average single family home price in acres now is at right around 510, 515, right in there.
So
Yeah.
very affordable. Is that, do you have, do y'all, and again, this might be ignorant, but do y'all have like condos and townhouses, or is it primarily single family? Do you have it all?
Yeah, we have it all. We have apartment style condos, townhouses, zero lot lines, single family, kind of runs the.
Do you have a lot of multifamilies?
Not as much as I'd like.
Yeah, exactly.
We
That
don't have
is
a lot here
definitely
either.
a market we need more of.
Yeah, we do need more.
We don't have a lot of those here either. I am starting to see a lot of people putting them in, and I think it's an influx of, seems like the West Coast, seems like it's really popular in the West Coast to have those ADUs and those multiple family homes. And we don't, up until like 2 years ago, I would have said we had like maybe 1%. Now we might have like 3%. We still don't have a lot, but I am starting to see that uptick a little bit when those, the Californians are starting to move this way.
Well, and I also think, excuse me.
Go ahead, Julie.
Well, I was just going to say, I think also when the interest rates were so low, you had buyers purchasing a duplex or a triplex. They lived in that. And then the interest rates were so low, they kept that property when they wanted to move up into a single family home. And so a lot of those units, I think, are tied up with the fact that we've got buyers who are now investors, and that really has taken a toll on our inventory. And I think it's a kind of a strong statistic for the lower 48 as well.
Oh, wow. Wow, that makes sense. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't thought about that. And then what's the average days on the market? Like this time of year? I know it'll vary depending on what time of year, but.
Yeah, so for all price points, in the last 6 months, it's been 36 days.
Oh, that's fast. Now, is that from day it gets listed to the day it closes? Is that from the day it gets listed to the day it goes under contract? How is that figured?
Day it's listed to the day it goes under contract.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. 36 days. That must be and Julie, how long have you been in real estate?
I got my license in 2001.
So you're very seasoned agent. How does that, I know that like I got in real estate in 2007 and the average days on the market were like 9 to 10 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right now ours has gone up a little bit. We're about 86 days on the market, but it seems like 36 is super short still. Is that typical or is that more recent with COVID?
Yeah, well, we're definitely climbing out of the COVID data, and but we are still seeing multiple offers, homes selling in 24 hours, things like that. And then usually if they're taking like 2 or 3 days, it's because multiple offers and they're waiting a few days to get everybody through and give the seller an opportunity to review those offers. But I think days on market are climbing and are going to continue to climb. Don't you, Hunter? I feel like our normal, like pre-COVID, I feel like our normal was like kind of 60 to 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I remember.
You remember what?
I remember it
60.
being more like 60 to 90 days, days on market before we got something pended. And so we just would tell sellers to be patient. And at that point, right, you were pricing things to sell within a reasonable time, where here you're still pricing things pretty aggressively.
Wow. That's awesome.
Mhm.
What is the job market like there? I asked we hadn't even talked about that, but I'm just trying to compare it, to what I know, which would be here. So I'm just trying to figure out what do people do in Alaska? Fish?
Yeah.
That's a
I
big
see
part
the
of
movies
it.
about that.
I mean,
Yeah.
primarily, I think the oil industry is the number one employer in the state.
Mhm.
Support services, engineering services, everything associated with the work that's going on in the North Slope. Fishing and tourism is probably somewhere. I mean, healthcare is obviously a big employment segment, but I
Yeah,
think
healthcare is huge. Yep.
if you're talking about what's unique, I think it's definitely the oil industry and probably fishing and tourism.
Oh, wow, that's cool. And then, Hunter, what took you from Virginia to Alaska?
Well, I was in Virginia, then I went to school in South Carolina in Charleston, and then my cousin offered me a job in Anchorage and working in a law firm. And I did transactional and corporate law there. And I actually worked with a lot of liquor licensing. We were probably the premier
I guess
liquor
it's cold. You
licensing.
have to drink liquor to stay warm.
Well, it's a sensitive topic.
Sorry.
And so in Anchorage, they actually limit the number of liquor licenses that are in circulation, and it's based on the population density.
Oh, wow.
And so whatever liquor licenses are out there, those are the ones that get used. And if you want one, if you're opening a restaurant, you have to buy one from someone else, from a private party.
Wow.
And they were at the time going for between $250,000 to $300,000 just
Holy cow.
Yeah,
just the
huge.
ability to sell, have a full bar. Now the beer and wine licenses were practically nothing, couple $1,000s. But
So why is it so hard?
it's just alcoholism is a problem in Alaska and the Native community particularly. So it's kind of a political hot topic.
Oh,
And
wow.
they do what they can to limit it. But if you want to get one outside of that, outside of the ones that are in circulation, you have to own a hospitality style business and prove that you're marketing to the public for hospitality, like a hotel, for example.
Oh, wow.
So they can get one. But if you're not doing that, you have to buy one from a private party. So we did
Holy
that kind of
cow. Huh.
Mhm.
Well, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, getting back to real estate, what are some common deal breakers that you're seeing that might be unique to Alaska?
Well, one thing that we saw quite a bit of during COVID is sight unseen offers.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone is dealing with those, right? And so I've noticed that a lot of people are having issues, especially if they're representing sellers. Then the buyer comes through sight unseen, they write this fantastic offer, and then they just back out on one little thing when they finally get to the home, and at that point they've lost 30 days marketing time or what have you.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So personally, I've been working with my sellers on sight unseen offers, and unless they've been to the home,
Don't take them.
I really don't. Yeah, I would not put their offer over anybody else's that has been to the home.
No, I 100% agree with you. I guess more along the lines of where I was going, one of the common problems here is we are a warm climate, we're moist climate, sandy soils, termites are really big here, and moisture in a crawl space is really big here. And those a lot of times they're fixable, but they could be very costly and can ruin deals. Is there anything specific to your area that might be, I don't know, kind of some, maybe with all the different not air conditioning, heaters and all that, maybe that's kind of similar?
No, I think we do have similar problems, especially if we have a big winter. We do see our water tables rise some. And in fact, not this past winter, but the past 2 winters prior to that, we had some of the biggest snowfall records in the state since they've been recording them. And when all that precipitation and that snow melts, it raises the water table. So it was actually messing up a lot of the leach fields for the septic systems, and those were failing during testing. And it was, we were seeing a lot of water in the crawl space and previously dry crawl spaces for years. And so I was having people check their crawl spaces just routinely if you're never down in there to see if there's water there. So, and there was I got a lot of calls about water issues when those water tables started to rise. And also, I would say, Julie, wouldn't you agree? And then it can create mold down there, which can be a problem to remediate. But also, ice damming and water getting to the house through the roof when we have heavy snow periods or snow winters.
So what did you say that was? Ice damming?
Ice damming. So essentially, we want our crawl space, attic spaces to be cold. And it seems counterintuitive because you would think, oh, it should be insulated and warm in there. But when it's warm in there, the warm surface on the underside of the roof where the plywood or the sheeting is, when that gets super warm and then you have snow falling on the top, it melts that snow.
Oh, wow.
And then that snow instantly freezes when it settles, and then that starts to build up this big block of ice. And when that block of ice starts to melt, it takes a long time. And then, as you know, water finds its way.
Yes, absolutely.
Going to find a way. So ice damming is definitely a problem. You want to make sure you have good ventilation in your roof system, and you want to make sure it stays cold in your roof. You don't want it warm. So sometimes the baffles can block, can fall down, and the insulation can clog up your soffits. So
never even heard of that.
Yeah.
One of the other things with the most recent, well, not this year because we had very little snowfall this year, but the prior 2 years, we had so much snow. So snow loads on the roof. Roofs were really having issues. And luckily, most of the damage was on some commercial buildings. But, homeowners were having to get up there on their roofs and literally shovel their roofs off. That's not normally something we have to do, but the last couple of years we've had to deal with that.
That is, pretty amazing. I always laugh because holy cow, I'm just trying to visualize getting on top of a roof and shoveling it off without damaging.
Well, you hire a professional.
I'm just trying, let's be clear. I don't have a snow shovel. It doesn't snow here. It snows occasionally, but if it's even a threat of snow, the whole entire town closes.
Right.
So we don't have salt. We don't have anything. So to imagine to get on a roof, what are your roofs made out of? We have shingle roofs. What kind of roofs do you guys have?
Same.
Shingle.
Same. Yeah. So how do you shovel it without damaging? Maybe that's a technical question. I just could see I would end up killing the roof.
Well, my husband, he'll get up there and he'll create valleys. So, and then you don't go all the way down to the raw shingle. There's usually some crusty snow that sits right on top of the shingle. So you just go and just get that weight off. And it's just amazing. One little valley on the side of a house will take off so much weight off your roof. So that's how he does it.
I'm intrigued. What about your contracts? Is there anything unusual about your contract? And I'll tell you, here in North Carolina, we have a due diligence fee. And I think South Carolina has started doing it. And I think Florida might call it an option fee. But here, the due diligence fee is very similar to the earnest money. They both are applied to the price of the home. The difference is that the due diligence fee is a check written to the seller and is non-refundable. And is due on the day of the contract. Yeah. So it's kind of an unusual thing that most people have a hard time understanding when they move here. Do you have anything unusual similarly to in your contracts?
It's hard to know what you would find to be unusual and what you would find to be similarity. I'm trying to think, Julie.
Well, back in the day, a few years before COVID, sellers in Alaska, it was normal for them to pay appraisal. And so a lot of 48 people that were here were like, oh, no, buyers pay for that. And since COVID, it's shifted it's shifted to buyers. And so buyers are now paying that cost, which technically is a lender required cost. It should go with the buyer. But prior to COVID, like I said, a few years prior, to be competitive, buyers started paying for it. And now when I work with sellers, we counter that if a buyer even thinks about sending that over the fence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jennifer, do you guys have title companies or attorneys?
Attorneys. That was going to be my next question. We're attorney state. What about you guys?
We're title. And the other thing interesting about our state is we're a non-disclosure state.
Oh yeah.
So tell me what that means.
So that means when our deed of trust notes all say $10. Everyone bought the home for $10, and we do not disclose the final sales price.
Not in the tax records or anywhere. You can't find that. That's not public information. Now that's interesting.
Now the taxing authority, the city, they have their own assessed value for the property, but it's not. It's a computerized mass appraisal system, and they grab data however they can. Sometimes people will turn in what they paid for their house, but we generally tell our clients not to do that. And then you just kind of watch your assessment value as it comes in. If it's exorbitantly high and you think you can dispute it, you can go to the city and dispute it. But
so it's not the MLS. Past sales are not in the MLS. How do you pull comps?
They are in MLS. So licensed licensees, real estate licensees in the state of Alaska are the only ones that can pull that data.
Yeah. And appraisers have access to it. Yeah. Yeah. But the government, the city government does not have access to our MLS or our data.
Yeah. Wow.
And Zillow does not either.
So what is the reasoning? What is the reasoning for that?
Private property rights. Yeah, private property rights, just not wanting the government in our business, basically.
Yeah.
Great, you know.
Wow.
We're very protective of personal property rights, and we fight our local associations and state association fight pretty hard to protect that for Alaskans. So
I think that's pretty interesting because whenever I show buyers, I have this whole buyer book and I put everything in it about the house, including the tax records. And I do always feel like the tax records are a huge invasion of privacy because not only can I see when they bought it, when they sold it, I can see if somebody died, I can see what bank they took the mortgage out with, how much they owe on it. Like it is I do feel like it's an invasion of privacy, but I also feel like it's really good information for my buyers.
Right, right. Well, and this is a good segue to talk about RPAC because RPAC, the person that goes and talks to our legislators, I'm trying to complete blank.
Our RPAC trustee.
Yeah, there's our lobbyist for Alaska. They got money from RPAC and went down and fought in Juneau because they were thinking of starting to disclose, and also the transfer tax. They wanted to do that. So RPAC has been really helpful in Alaska to keep our dollars and our costs and our information private.
Wow. And then with the changes in the real estate commission did that affect you? It didn't really affect us because we've always been a buyer agency and a buyer beware state. Sellers have always had the option to negotiate whether they paid buyer agency or not. Did that, and I know some states had never really heard of buyer agency. How did that affect you guys in Alaska? And if you feel comfortable answering it, and if you don't.
Well, yeah, sure. Do you want to start, Hunter?
No, go ahead, Julie.
Okay. Well, the buyer agreement we've always had that as an option to present to buyers. It was never a required form prior to this new legislation. And so now everyone has to present that form to the buyers even before they step foot in the property.
Do they have to sign it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then there's various levels of, we'll show you only the properties where the seller is offering compensation to the buyer broker, or you're going to show them everything and hope to get compensation from the seller.
Yeah.
Or you're comfortable paying my salary. And so, and then it can be, what's interesting, I've run into a couple people that only want to sign a buyer's agreement for like the one property I'm showing them. And it's like, okay, and I'll do it just because it keeps us all legal, right? But But a lot of my clients are, sign it for a year. It may not take us a whole year to buy a property, but they'll sign it for a year.
Yeah, I
Did you have
agree.
anything to add?
It's a little bit weird when they have to sign up before they've ever really met you. Um, but we have,
No, we usually present it the day we meet, or like when we meet.
yeah, but it's like have been working on this client for the past couple of days, and they said, "You mean you want me to sign it? It's kind of a leap of faith that I'm actually going to like you." And I was like, you're right. So we also could do like a showing, like a 1 or 2 day showing form that says, "Hey, you're not ready to sign by your agency. However, please note, I am not your agent. I'm very limited in what I can tell you. I could open the door for you, but I'm limited in the information." And sometimes I'll do that, but I'll usually tell them like, "Hey, after 2 homes, you're either going to know you love me or don't love me. And at that point, I want you to sign the buyer agency." The lady today was her second day, and she's like, "Okay, I'm ready to sign it. You're right. Like, I love you. And I, of course, want to work with you." And I'm like, "That's right." But, but so technically we should have, us in North Carolina, had to have always had it signed. But to be 100% honest, I never did. And I usually would do buyer agency at the same time I was writing a contract or writing an offer. So I think it's one unusual thing that to me has been very positive is that because you're doing it in Alaska and they're doing it in New York and they're doing it in Colorado and they're doing it in Wilmington, North Carolina, people come in knowing that it's an expectation to sign it. And that's a good thing. There's a little bit more uniformity with the real estate profession across the United States. And to me, we have so many people moving here, that's made it kind of easy and a little bit more professional, I feel like.
I like it.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's nice to know that you've met with someone, they're prepared to work with you, and that you have a contract with them, because buyers, as we know, can wander.
Yes.
And next thing you know, it's like, "Oh, well, by the way, we just bought this house, over here." And it's like, what?
Makes you want to cry.
Yeah. And so it's happened to all of us, rarely, obviously, but it does happen. So it is kind of nice to know that you're locked in with someone.
No, and it makes you a little bit more professional to say, "Hey, let's be clear, I don't work for free. I don't."
Exactly.
Yes. And then I think
it forces the conversation.
That's right. I think it's an opportunity to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think at the beginning I was really kind of worried about it, but honestly, I agree with you, Hunter. I like it.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up, what is advice to buying or selling a house in Alaska today?
I would say for me is you have to be focused on everything. You need to try to stay emotionally grounded and financially grounded and balanced at the same time. But also there's so many unique aspects to Alaska living. And so you need to ask how the property is positioned on the home. Where is the light? Is it south facing backyard? Where do you want the light in the evening? What does the drainage look like on the property? Is it well and septic? Is it public utilities? Do you have toys, as we call them? Do you have four-wheelers and snow machines and RVs? And do you need space for that? And if you purchase property and you don't have those things, just know that that's a bonus feature to a home for most Alaskans. So trying to find, a perfect or a good Alaskan home may not be the same as finding a good, perfect Wilmington home. There's a lot of different features to the geography and where we live that make it the type of heating, does it have a generator switch in case the power goes out from the snow or a windstorm or a blizzard, things like that. So understanding just how everything works, like we've talked about with the water tables and the movement, how things you need to look for when you're in the home, and just the features of the home that are going to make for a really great Alaskan home, I think.
Wow. And then Julie, what would you recommend? What are advice you'd give sellers that are thinking about selling their home in Alaska?
Well, this is a great question, because one of the things I wanted to comment about is, Hunter, when I do have sellers in the fall, the one advantage for a seller in that scenario is there's less inventory. So they they're not they're not competing with so many homes that come up in the summer months. So that is one advantage to a seller. And we do sell year round. But with my sellers, I tell them, you're going to do some hard work in the beginning. And once that's all done, we'll take it over from there. So we walk through the house. I tell them what to prepare for. And when working with the seller, because I know a lot of home inspectors refer to an HVAC contractor to come in and specifically look at the furnace, water heater, and garage unit heater. So when I work with the seller, I'm like, just bring an HVAC person in, have them look at those things, and then you're going to know what repairs are needed. And if you have to replace anything, we'll be able to, one, market the fact that you've got a new furnace or a new water heater. And then the cost of that, we can hopefully recover for you in the price of the home.
Nice.
And then, just talk to them about just how much equity they have in their home, and just talk about, I also, in my market analysis, talk about, just what the neighbors are selling and condition. Because if your house smells, like of a pet,
Yep, that's right.
yeah,
Stains and odors.
we have to address all of these things. And I actually just pulled a house off the market last week. We kept getting comments about her floor had a slope to it. Well, when I went in there, she had all this furniture. And so when she moved out, everything looked great. Like everything was clean. She had professional paint, all these things. And I'm like, you know what? We need to get a structural engineer in there. And sure enough, her home had sunk, and they had done today's date, it had sunk back when the house was originally built. And so everything was set to a sunken level. And so now we're going to raise a foundation at a cost of $70-some thousand. And then we don't know if the sheetrock's going to go this way or that way.
Yeah.
Windows are not going to be plumbed. So yeah, it's just going through some of those things, like what can we address in advance and just try to remove as many obstacles for a buyer.
Wow. Okay, this is such a trivial question, and Julie, don't laugh at me. But what do you wear? Okay, and I'm telling you where I'm going with this. I had a client years ago that was selling her house in Colorado, and she showed me this short little clip of her realtor there in the middle of a blizzard showing a house, and she had on full ski wear. I mean, and it was and I was like, holy hell, I would not be a real estate agent there. That looked miserable. Keep in mind, we don't have snow. But how in a blizzard, people are still buying and selling homes. How in the world do you do that?
We're just like the folks in Colorado.
Puffy down coats. Yeah. Puffy down coats and insulated.
Okay, I guess you just get used to it, huh?
Yeah.
But you can still find fashionable things to wear. But yeah, it's
just look like the abominable snowman. Okay. In several months, when it gets cold, 6 months or whatever, I want y'all to send me a picture. Hunter, that was your job. Take a picture of Julie when she's not showing a home. I want to see it.
Okay, sounds good. We can do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time and your friendship and learning from you. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You're the best. Thank you so much. Say hi to your team.
I will. I appreciate you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Hunter.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.